deep dive into a subject which is most apt in today's days. The preparedness is always better. As we rightly say, prevention is better than cure. We have on board none other than the expert himself, Mr. Sunil Fernandes. Thanks to Head Legal of BRPL, Mr. Raj Arora, for all his efforts in helping us with an expert to speak on will and probate, how to secure the future of the next generation. Everybody in this world, be it of any stature, wants to look back at his life and make sure that the life that he has led has been fruitful and is concerned about the fate of his property and earnings after his death. A person can ensure as to how his property is to devolve and whom his property should be devolved to, and the easiest and most common way is to ensure that it is through way of will under the Hindu law or wasiyat under the Shariat law. The importance and impact of a will was seen through the controversy that arose with respect to the will of Priyamvada Birla, widow of MP Birla, which marked the unmistakable fate of Birla Group of Industries. The importance of making a will has yet again been seen to proliferate during these challenging times of the pandemic. A sudden billowing in making and execution of will has been seen during the COVID-19. As the demise from the coronavirus climbed, bequest arranging lawyers are taking note of an ascent in calls from new clients and restless existing ones who needed to take care of their end of life plans. A will simplifies the lives of family and friends to sort out the properties and inheritance for after a person dies, decreasing the time-consuming court hassles and stress that follows thereafter. If one doesn't write a will, everything owned by the person dying will be distributed in a uniform and standard way defined by the law, which might be opposite to the wishes of the dying person. Something that might catch a lot of people's attention is also reduction on the amount of inheritance tax that may be payable on the value of property and money being left behind. Writing a will is most important when it comes to family, to have one's children or family members depending upon the bread earner financially. In such a case, one would want to leave specific shares to such people according to the wishes of the testator. And last but not the least, one cannot speak with much certitude whether one will be inflicted by the virus or not these days. COVID-19 has made such an action of making a will an essential practice. With these little words, I pass on the baton to Mr. Raj Arora, Head Legal BRPL, to welcome our star attraction of the day and to speak further on the subject. I'm supported by my team of Mr. Gautam Prabhakar, Mr. Kimanan Sati, and Mr. Subhash. Together, we would ensure that you have a meaningful session with the least technical glitches. Over to you, Raj.
Yeah, thanks, Renu. We welcome Mr. Sunil Fernandes. Renu has already emphasized upon the importance of the will, so I will not dwell on that right now. Just to give a brief introduction of Mr. Sunil Fernandes. He is an advocate on record, practicing in Supreme Court of India and the Delhi High Court. He was born and brought up in Mumbai. He obtained his degree in political science from the University of Mumbai with the gold medal. Thereafter, he shifted to Delhi and obtained a law degree and started practicing as an advocate. He has served as an additional Advocate General for the state of MP. He has also served as a standing counsel for the state of Jammu and Kashmir. At present, he is the standing counsel for BSCS in Delhi High Court and Supreme Court. He has conducted more than 3,000 cases since 2006, out of which around 250 are reportable judgments. Some of the landmark cases in which Mr. Fernandes was involved was striking down the validity of Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code, Section 497 of the Indian Penal Code regarding adultery case, entry of women in Sabrimala temple case. He was also appointed as an amicus curiae by the Honorable Supreme Court on a landmark decision based on illegal arrest of ladies in the case of Rini Johar with state of MP. The list can go on and on, but due to paucity of time, I am not going further. I am just handing over the mic to Mr. Sunil Fernandes to start the proceedings. Welcome.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you, Rituji. Thank you, Renuji. And a very warm good afternoon to everybody in the BSCS family. And although today's topic of discussion is wills, which has a very ominous ring to it, as if there is some problem with our respective lives and we need to get the wills done. Uh, but before we get into the, and I don't intend to make it a very technical discussion. It's a very simple sharing of views, as an advocate, as a professional who deals with these cases. I just wanted to share what are the aspects, various facets of wills. But before that, one should let's have the correct mental impression about what a will is. Will is not something that you make when you are just about to die. You see, so let's. It's not something that unlike in our Hindi movies where where we see that a very old man is on his last days in his dying bed, and then suddenly he calls for some will to be made, and then that is a subject matter of a 3 hour movie, the controversy of his will. So will is not that, it's not something that is to be made only at the terminal end of your life. A will comes into operation only when the person making the will, who is known as a testator, जो एक legal definition है कि जो will बनाता है, that person is called the testator. And if it's a female, then a testatrix. So when a testator expires or passes away, only then the will comes into the picture. So uska koi, there is no expiry date, there is no requirement that before dying within 6 months or 1 year or 2 years your will should be there. You can make a will in your 30s and you can very well live up to your 90s, and if that's your last will, that will, everything will be done as per that will. So first and foremost, just that mental image has to be cleared कि will is not something जो हम अपने डेथ बेड पे, हम अपने आखिरी स्टेज पे, like हम खुदा ना खास्ता we go to a doctor and doctor says that oh you have only 6 months to live, so it is not like a bucket list. When you know that your end is near, and then only then you should start preparing your will. ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. Will can be made, and of course during these pandemic times, तो एक लोगों the apprehension in the hearts of people is a very valid apprehension, as in no doubt on that. But the what is to be appreciated about is that will can be done at any point of time. It can be made by any person at any stage of his life. There is absolutely no requirement that you have to make the will only towards the end. And again, very importantly, will is not relatable to the death of the testator or the testatrix. Like for example, only those will which are been made 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year before the death of the testator will be considered valid. And if a will has been made 10 years before the death, that will is invalid. ऐसा कुछ नहीं. So let's get couple of fundamental things right. Now, what is a will? You see, when a person expires and if he writes a will, then that whatever properties are there, those properties then will go to the various persons in what is known as testamentary succession. कि मैंने will बनाया और will के तहत सारा जो properties मेरी जो अपनी संपत्ति है, the rights that I have on my property will go as per that will. Now, if I die and on the day of my death, there is no will, then that person, then the people who succeed to my property, they will be known as an intestate succession. That is a will, that is a succession of those people who have come into the picture without the existence of a will. So you can die, when you die, you can either die with a will, and if you die with a will, then you can control as to how the property devolves after your death, or you can die intestate, that is without a will. In that case, the property will devolve equally among your class 1 heirs. As per the law, whosoever are your class 1 heirs, they will get the property equally. So first and foremost advantage of a will is that you get to decide the devolution or the succession or the passing on of your property even after your death. So normally after you die, the story is over. Your role comes to an end. There's nothing you can do. But the will ensures that even after your death, you can direct the devolution of your property. So all that you have worked hard all your life, you have the option of ensuring. Now, for example, if you have 4 children and out of that you feel only 2 have been good to you, have been ideal children, and 2 have not, then you have the right to divert your assets in towards the benefit of these two children and deprive the other two bad children of those assets. And if you had not made your will, then your property would devolve equally to all four of them. So therefore, whether somebody has taken care of you, not taken care of you, been an ideal child, not been an ideal child, everybody gets the same share. That is, if you don't prepare your will. But if you prepare your will, you get to decide as to the direction in which your assets flow, which you have worked your hard for your entire life. You get a chance to see the direction in which the assets flow after your death. So that is straight away the advantage of preparing a will, that that when while we are alive, we do take a lot of efforts to take care of our assets, of our property, of our wealth, and so on and so forth. And why should that care not be there just because the person's dead? So will gives you an option of to take care of your assets, to take care of your property beyond your lifetime, even after death. So that is the one biggest advantage of what a will is. Now, what are the various aspects of a will? मतलब ऐसा क्या होना चाहिए in an ideal will? देखो, will कोई बहुत ही कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लीगल डॉक्यूमेंट नहीं है, बहुत ही सिंपल सरल डॉक्यूमेंट है. उसको आप एक प्लेन पेपर पे भी आप लिख सकते हो. So it's not like a legal, जैसे हम on behalf of BSCS we file cases very frequently or we defend cases very frequently. So there is an official formal legal format. But for will purposes, there is absolutely no format, no stamp paper, nothing. As you sit, you can just tear a sheet of paper from your pad and start noting down the will. So there is a great degree of informality in making the will, but a will in ultimately, see, the will has to be proved after the death of a person. So unfortunately, अगर मैंने कोई will बनाया है, तो मेरे मरणोपरांत मैं कोर्ट में आके तो बोल नहीं सकता कि नहीं जी यही मेरा सही विल है और दूसरा विल जो दूसरे पार्टी दिखा रही है वो सही विल नहीं है. सो आई कांट कम एंड डिफेंड माय विल. So therefore, even if the will is simple, will is informal, there are certain things that should be there in the will to ensure that after your death, if that will is a subject matter of a legal challenge, if that is a subject matter of some litigation, then the court should have confidence that yes, this was the last will of Mr. Fernandez. You see? So therefore, now what are the various facets of a will? Firstly, as I said, कि बहुत ही informal है, एक simple piece of paper में भी आप लिख सकते हैं. There are a few things that every will should contain. First and foremost, it should clearly identify the testator. कौन will बना रहा है? सबसे पहले तो वो बात है ना, that has to be very clear. कि I, Mr. So and so, son of so and so, resident of so and so, this was my PAN number, this was my Aadhaar card number, this is where my residential address. So the first aspect of that will should be a clear identification of the person who's making that will. So first, and that's the first part. Second part of that, second aspect of the will is the person who is making the will should clearly make a description of his entire immediate family members. For example, wife, sons, daughters, married sons, unmarried sons, married daughters, unmarried daughters, who are his grandchildren, so on and so forth. So a brief description that this is what my family is as on this date. Then third aspect is and the crucial aspect is identifying the properties. Now property can be both movable property, immovable property. I can say that yes, I have this flat in Delhi. I have this land in my ancestral village. I have a couple of bank accounts, and this is the amount in those bank accounts. I have these shares. I have these fixed deposits. And these are the various assets that I have today as on say 22nd June 2021. So that's the third part, that you should clearly identify what your assets are. That has to be given very specifically, because as I said, if you leave anything unclear or non-specific, unfortunately, you won't get a chance to clarify that when the matter goes to court or when there is a question mark on that document, because you're dead. You see, so that's why. So the third aspect of a will should be that it should clearly contain what all are your assets as on date. Then the next part of the will, which is for your successors, the most crucial part, what is the share of the devolution? That is the succession. What have you decided? For example, if you have these many properties, whom are you going to give those properties? Those things have to be said in a very clear and a specific manner. that flat bearing number so and so at so and so postal code so and so is bequeathed to Mr. So and so, my so and so son, age so and so, and these are his details. So keep it as clear and specific that tomorrow there should be no question of any. For example, there is you have two sons, Sanjay and Sujay, and you say that no, I am going to give this flat to Sanjay, and after my death the flat will go to him. After your death, supposing there is a dispute, and Sujay says that no, he actually meant Sujay, but instead of Sujay, the will there is a typo error which says Sanjay. So then how do you decide that? So therefore, if you are saying that no, I'm giving it to Sanjay and not to Sujay, then Sanjay, then you give his particular and details. His if preferable, give his identification details like say Aadhaar, PAN, his address, or so on and so forth. So that at least that makes it very clear that which of the two persons you were referring to. So the next aspect is of the will that once having specified as to what your property is, the next stage should be a clear devolution of those properties, a clear assignment of those properties, that this flat will go to this one, this property will go to this one, this bank account will go to this one, and so on and so forth. So that has to be very clear, very simple, and without non-complicated. Then the next stage, supposing you are, if you are giving it to, if you are giving everything equally to everyone, that is to your sons and daughters, that's fine. But if there is some discrimination, some, and you are entitled to, the law gives you the right to discriminate. कोई भेदभाव है कि आपने एक बच्चे को या एक लड़के को या एक लड़की को ज्यादा दिया है and बाकियों को कम दिया है, you should specify that and you should give the proper reason for that. So that tomorrow, because you should always understand that your will should be something that if it is challenged in the court of law, it should stand the scrutiny of a judge. So therefore, if you have 5 children, I mean, these days, of course, the number of children are not that great, so that high. So the number of controversies is limited, unlike earlier days when there used to be several children, and sometimes giving it to one and depriving the other 4 is to lead to a lot of litigation. But even then, it is, if supposing you have even 2 children and you're giving 90% of a property to and only 10%. I think someone else has.
Mic's on mute, please. It's going to be a big distraction. Request everyone to adhere to that. Sorry for the interruption, Mr. Fernandez. Please continue.
Yeah, sure. So, supposing if you're doing you have 2 children and you're saying that no, 90% of my property I'm going to give to my younger son and only 10% to my eldest son. So you should specify the reason for that discrimination. You have the right. Of course, you can give 100 also to one person and 0 to the other. But if you're giving any, instead of a normal 50, if you're going to give such a vast difference in your devolution, then you should give the details as to what is the reason. Why have I given 90% of my property to one son and why have I given only 10%? It may not be that, that 90% fellow is a good son and the 10% fellow is not. You can always say that during my lifetime, I have given lot of assets, spent lot of money on this son on whom I am now giving only 10% because, for his foreign education, for his business, for his marriage, etc. We've spent a lot of money. Conversely, on the other side, we've spent nothing. So therefore, in order to balance it out, I want to give more to one son and lesser to the other one. And you can also decide that you can eliminate both the sons, say that no, I'm giving nothing to my sons, I'm giving all to my daughter. So it's up to you. It is totally up to you, as long as that property, both movable, immovable, is self-acquired property, you can decide it the way you want to. You can also decide that I'm not going to give it to any of my children and I'm giving it to a trust, I'm giving it to a temple, and I'm giving it to some person outside the family, like what was rightly said in the Priyamvada Birla case, where the will disowned everybody. Nobody in the family got anything. It all went to a family friend. So even you are entitled to do that, but you must always understand this, that if the bequeathment जिसको हम लोग law में कहते हैं, when you give something to someone else, if whatever assets you are bequeathing to someone after your death, if it is in a traditional conventional manner, it won't lead to a controversy. The more unconventional it is, the greater chances of it being litigated. So you must always understand that, hopefully with our wills, and there should not be much of a problem. But since we are discussing it on a legal principle, on at least to get the fundamentals correct कि कैसे क्या हो रहा है. So there you should realize that if there is any divergence, supposing if you have 4 property and you have 2 sons and you're giving 2 property both of them, that's fine. But whatever say if there is a divergence from the traditional this thing bequeathment, then you should specify. That really helps to make the will very strong, because there are reasons contained in the will as to why one party is being favored, and the reasons for favoring the party and the reasons for not favoring the other parties. So that becomes your one very important aspect of the will. Then the next part of your will should be what should known as who is going to be the executor of that will. For example, you may say that this will, I want all this property of mine to go in favor of one daughter of mine who's married, and I don't want my other 2 sons to have anything to do with the property, assuming you have 3 children. And you may say that my very good family friend, Mr. So and so, shall be the executor of the will. Now, what does the role of the executor is? I mean, the executor can be a person who is not a beneficiary. He can also be a person who's a beneficiary. For example, you can say that I am giving all my property to my eldest son. He is the beneficiary. The person in whose favor the property comes after your death becomes the beneficiary. And if that person itself is given the right to approach the court and do the paperwork, then that person is also called the executor. Or an executor can also be a person who can approach the court for transfer of all those property, but he may not be the beneficiary. So it depends. So the executor is a person who, after your death, shall approach the court and say that Mr. X has expired, and after his death he has said that this is his property, and in this manner the property has to be bequeathed, it has to devolve. So therefore I have approached this court and I am requesting the court to pass an order so that those properties can be accordingly bequeathed, accordingly distributed as per the last will of Mr. X. So that person who approaches the court is the person who is the executor. He has to be given that right under the will. Executor can be somebody who has got no connection with the will, who is not going to get any benefit out of the will, or can be a person who is also getting some benefit of the will, is also a beneficiary. The reason why normally beneficiaries are not made as executors is that to ensure that there is no conflict of interest. Person coming to the court saying that Mr. X has expired and this is how his will property should be distributed. If he does not have any personal interest in that, if he is not going to gain something from that, then that gives him a greater impartial role before the court. So that's been the traditional reason, and many times it may involve certain technicalities. The beneficiaries may not be in a position. For example, the beneficiary may be married, or beneficiary may be living in a different city or even a different country. It's not possible for the beneficiary to pursue all those legal remedies. So therefore, the testator, the person making the will, may feel that no, instead of making the beneficiary as the executor, I will have one of my very close friends, or I'll have my family lawyer, and I'll make him the executor and let him go to the court after my death and execute it. Then the next part is that every will must be clearly signed by the person concerned. He should be of sound mind. Ideally, it is a legal technique we also give. If the will is also attached, if the will has an attachment of the medical certificate of a doctor, which gives a certificate of your mental and physical health, that's even better. You see, and the will should have 2 persons as attesting witnesses. So you sign that will, and then there should be 2 other persons who are the witnesses. Those witnesses must not be the ones who are either the executor or the beneficiary. So supposing if you are giving your property to 2 sons, those 2 sons should not then be your witnesses. They should be totally persons who are totally unrelated to the interest of the property. Another tip, practical tip, what we give is the executor, that is the person who will execute your will after you are no longer alive, and the witnesses must be at least 15 to 20 years younger than the testator. So at least they should have a good long life. It should not be that you are in your supposing the person, a testator, is in his 70s, and the people who are attesting witnesses also are in their 70s. So it may so happen that sometimes the witnesses may expire or predecease the testator, or even if they do live, they would be of such an advanced age that it would be difficult for them to come to the court and give testimony. You see, so this is a common error what is done. by most of the people who prepare the will. They have the witnesses as their best friends or neighbors, or people whom they know since last several decades. But that doesn't help because they are invariably of the same age group. So ideally, you should get somebody, the executor as well as the witnesses, who are far younger than you, so that there is a good chance in the natural scheme of things, in the natural progression of things, that they will outlive you for another 15, 10, 15, 20 years. So that if at all the will has to be challenged in court, and if there is some litigation that is going on for a few years, then at least those witnesses and those executors do have a sufficient lifespan, have a healthy lifespan to litigate. So that's another tip what we can give. Then a question that is very commonly asked is, do you need to register a will? Now, what is the concept of registering? See, registering is nothing but the stamp of approval by the government. Now, if you are purchasing a property, now there are certain documents like, say, a sale deed, which under law has to be compulsorily registered. So you cannot, if you are saying that I have a sale deed, I have paid 100% of the money under the sale deed to the seller, but that sale deed is not registered, then sorry, the government or law does not recognize you to be as the lawful owner. So some documents are compulsorily registrable. Some documents it is optional, whether you want to register it or you don't want to register it. For example, any lease deed for a lease of a property beyond 11 months is compulsory registrable. Before, if it is less than 11 months or 11 months, then it is option of yours. You can register it also, you can not register it also. If you don't register it, there is no harm. You have a full legal right on it. Now, the wills also belong to those category of documents for which registration is optional. So you can either register it or you can't register it. That's up to you. So even if you have not registered it, it's not that there is no legal sanctity. Of course, there is a legal sanctity for the will. But the reason why we asked for it to be registered, the procedure is almost the same that you would have to do, for registration of a property. I think most of us have had a visit to the sub-registrar's office, in connection of either buying or selling a property. So registration also is the same process, approximately the same process. The technicalities I won't tell you all, because that is something that can be done later on as and when you need to. But right now the idea is to just share the broad ideas, broad concepts about what a will is, so that so registration is optional. But I would seriously and earnestly recommend that if that is a will that you have made, then please get it registered, so that what happens is it gives a greater proof for that will. It becomes more authentic. Tomorrow a registered will has a much greater chance of succeeding in court compared to an unregistered will. Now, another question you may ask, that why should we register it now, or why should we have the will drawn now? I'm only in my 30s or 40s or 50s. Why can't I do it after 10 years? And assuming if I do it now and then 10 years down the line or 5 years down the line, I have some more property I acquire, then what will I do? So there is no problem. See, today, as on 22nd June 2021, you prepare a will. You decide which property will go to which successors of yours. And then say you live by God's grace for another 20 years. In those 20, 25 years, you acquire some more assets, some more property, movable and immovable. Then those properties which were acquired subsequent to the date of your will, they also can be determined as to in what manner they can be bequeathed by way of what is known as a codicil. CODICIL. It is just like an annexure. So will आपका main document बन गया, और उस मेन डॉक्यूमेंट में जो डेवोल्यूशन ऑफ प्रॉपर्टी है उसके बाद भी अगर कोई प्रॉपर्टी आती है या एनी माइनर चेंजेस एक्सेट्रा यू वांट टू डू, you can prepare what is known as a codicil, which becomes like an annexure to the will. So it's like a continuation of the will. So वो codicil बनाइए and codicil भी register कीजिए. So you don't need to scrap the entire will, because your will may run into say 10 pages, and उसमें से there is one para that you want to insert. Okay, this extra property I have got it and I want it to go to Mr. So and so or Miss so and so. So that can be done by way of a codicil. So you have the will, a duly properly prepared will that I've just specified as to in which manner it should be done. And then based on this will, what you do is you get it registered. And then after registration, say a few years down the line, if there are any further assets that come to your share, if you're able to earn anything more, or there's an augmentation in your asset base, that also can be a subject matter of your will by way of what is known as a codicil. CODICIL. Codicil बनाइए and उसको भी register कीजिए. It becomes a part and parcel of the will. It becomes a continuation of the will. So these are your broad ideas as to what a will is all about. And once if a will is, I've already told you all that uh, once the person passes away, it's only then that the will becomes active. And once a will is active, then the question arises whether how do you enforce that will. Then that process is known as probate proceedings, where a will has been prepared by Mr. X, he passes away. Then after he has passed away, the executor of that will approach the court and seek what is known as a probate order or a letters of administration order. And in some cases, he can also apply for a succession certificate. So these are various legal terminologies. You needn't be much worried about it. That's baat ki baat hai. That's a bit of a technical thing. But broadly, you must understand that will hai. Now, how does that will get the stamp of approval from the court? So first, what you do is you get it registered. So you have the stamp of approval of the government. And then subsequently, after the death of the person, and of course, the registration of the will has to take place when the person is alive. After he's alive, you can't register it because the person will have to sign the registering document who's preparing the will. But the probate proceedings are after the person expires, the person making the will expires. So what we have, what is known as probate proceedings or letter of administration proceedings, where you go to the court and you say that Mr. X has expired. I am the executor on the will. I am furnishing this copy of the will before the court. And in terms of the will, he has these 4 properties, and these 4 properties must devolve as per the formula laid down in the will. Then what the court will do is it will issue notice to everybody, all your legal heirs, sons, daughters, wife, widow, whether they have any share in the property or don't have any share in the property. Everybody is issued notices, and then you also have to publish it in some local newspaper that so and so probate proceedings are pending. If anyone has any objection or if anyone has anything to say, they can come before the court and say it. So once notices are issued to all your legal heirs, then they have the option of either coming to court and accepting it that yes, this is the last will of my father or mother and I stand by it, or they can contest it. They can oppose it, saying that no, this will is not genuine. This will was signed, forged, fabricated, or when he signed it, he was not of sound mental mind. He had already become very old, or he was forcibly made to sign this under pressure, force, coercion, and so on and so forth. So various defenses can be raised if you have any problem with the will. And then ultimately the court decides as to whether who of the 2 parties are correct. And it is at that stage that when a will is registered and when the will has a great deal of clarity, like I've just said, otherwise you can just prepare a 1-page will also. But if all these points that I've just said are there prevalent in the will, the court, it inspires confidence in the court. The court feels that no, all these things are there. It seems to be a will made by a very person who is in full control of his senses, and he has made a right and a genuine will. So these are the various stages, and once the court passes the order, based on that order, you can go to the sub-registrar's office, and there is an automatic transfer of the title in your name without any further payment, without any whatever charges may be there, that small charges you have to give, but otherwise the transfer gets done in your name. So this is the entire process from the stage of making the will till the stage of its enforcement, till the stage of its execution, and the bequeathment to your legal heirs. So I have deliberately kept it limited because I would really like to open the floor for questions. Please, if you all have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So there is a question by a gentleman, Tarun, that's in the chat box, says exclusion of natural heirs or giving lesser share to them by itself, wouldn't it fall under suspicious circumstances in case of a probate?
So that is why I said that in your will itself, although there is no requirement that you have to give the reasons, there is no formula at all for a will. But the reason why I'm at the outset itself, I said that if there is a plain simple distribution of assets, it's fine. But if you're going to do some variation in that, then it is always advisable that the will should contain detailed reasons as to why are you giving in favor of somebody a lot more than what he or she is entitled to, and why are you not giving the legitimate or the or the usual share that you would have otherwise given. So as I said, if there are two properties and if you're giving both the properties to one son and saying nothing to the other son, it's ideal that you should specify the reasons as to why are you doing that. So that way the will becomes authentic, although there is no legal requirement for that. The law does not ask you for any reasons. It's your wish. But in order to ensure that tomorrow if there is any controversy, that controversy is taken care of, you should do this so that gives a clear-cut reason as to why have you done this? Why have you decided to give something, one of your heirs a lot more and deprive the other one of the assets? Yeah. Next question, please.
There's another question by Fausia. She's asking that how do we change the will?
So as I said, there are two ways of changing a will. One is you can have a fresh will, and while you prepare a fresh will, you have to specifically state that in this by way, supposing today you are preparing a will on 22nd of June 2021, and you have already prepared a will on 22nd of June 2020, exactly 1 year prior. So when you prepare a new will, apart from the various clauses that I've just said, the various facets or various parts of that will, one more clause you should definitely add, one more para you should add in your will, saying that I specifically revoke and cancel all my previous wills. And if you have the dates, even better. You see, so one way of changing or revoking your will is this: you make a fresh will, and in that fresh will you specifically mention the previous will, saying that this revokes that previous will in its entirety. So this is if you want to totally scrap it and prepare a new will. But if supposing there are only minor changes, that you want to incorporate, changes which you don't need to scrap the entire will to have those changes enforced, then you can do it by virtue of what I just called the codicil. CODICIL. A codicil is something that is like an annexure, an addendum to the main will, whereby minor variations in your original document of your will can be factored in the addendum, in the codicil. So prepare a codicil, and then in the codicil you can say that no, I had in my earlier will I had said that this bank account would devolve to my youngest son. Now I want to make another change. Apart from this bank account, there's another bank account, and even that also should go to my youngest son. Or that bank account, I don't want it to go to my youngest son. It should go to my daughter. So if there is one minor variation in your bequeathment, you can do that by way of a codicil, but only if there's a limited minor variation. If there's a total variation, then instead of a codicil, it is always advisable that you go for a fresh will. Scrap the earlier one, specify saying that I scrap the earlier will, this is my fresh will, and then get the subsequent will registered also. I hope that answers it.
Thank you. One more question. This is by Mr. UN Gupta. He wishes to know that if there is no executor appointed in the will, who shall present it before the court for probate?
So then the beneficiary can do that. If there is no specific executor, then what is known as the beneficiary can approach the court and ask for what is known as letters of administration. So that's just a legal terminology that changes. If you have an executor, then you file for a probate. If there is no executor, then you file for something known as letters of administration, and then the beneficiary can approach. In the absence of an executor, the beneficiary becomes the executor. And this is also logical. Now, supposing if I'm going to get a property on the death of my father, and my father has not named an executor, so that does not mean that his last wishes cannot be carried. Then has the beneficiary, as the person who's ultimately going to get it, or one of the persons who's going to get it, I can approach the court and say that this is the will, but there is no executor appointed under this will, but I am the beneficiary, or I am one of the beneficiaries, so therefore please permit me to approach the court. So you can approach it, only the nomenclature changes. Instead of calling it a probate petition, then it becomes a letters of administration. So that's the only difference.
Another question by Deepak Kumar. Can I make a will which was not earned, as in the property wasn't earned or the assets were not earned by me, but got through the grandfather, etc.?
No, see what happens is, you can make a will of all your assets. That's not a problem. Even your ancestral is also. But if you have inherited any property as an ancestral property, then it shall devolve as per your own personal family laws. Among the Hindus and among the Muslims, they have their own separate sequence in which the property devolves. So although you can make a will, but if someone wants to challenge it, that person can challenge it, saying that No, this in this will, and this land in village so and so has been bequeathed to one son and other sons are excluded. But my father could not have done that because this is not his self-acquired property. This is his ancestral property, and as per the Hindu law, it has to devolve in equal shares to his surviving class one heirs. So that can be a subject matter of challenge. So he can obviously include it in his will, but in merely including in the will, that is the devolution of an ancestral property, does not mean that there cannot be a challenge to that. You can always challenge it, if supposing there is something unfair.
Right. Thank you. One more query. This is by again Ms. Fozia. Can the will be challenged in court if the person is alive and the next generation isn't happy with the will? Is that
No,
possible?
no. Thankfully, and otherwise, I hope what Miss Fozia says should happen. We lawyers will get a lot of business that way, But unfortunately, unfortunately, you can't litigate while the person is alive. Even if you know the contents of the will, and even if you know that the contents of the will are totally damaging to you still can't go to the court. दी एक बात आप समझ लीजिए, या तो विल बनाने वाला कोर्ट जाएगा या तो उसका विल जाएगा, दोनों एक साथ कोर्ट नहीं पहुंच सकते. So therefore only it's after the death of the person who has made the will can does that will gets activated. And if you recollect, this is the first thing I told when we started this conversation, that there is no harm. You can make a will today evening itself, because it does not have any expiry date. It's not valid for a certain period of time, or it is not valid only if it is made within a certain time period from your death. No, you make a will and you keep it, and it will remain inactive as long as you're active. The moment you stop being active, that will becomes active. So you and your will have an inverse proportion or inverse relationship. So prepare the will, it remains where it is, no problem on that. And after your death, only that the will becomes active, and then that takes care of the devolution.
I think on a lighter note, the cops would have more work before you would step in such a scenario. Okay, so again, how much time does a probate generally take? What's the timeline for that?
It depends. If supposing it is not contested, that within a year everything gets done. And if it gets contested, then the unfortunate part in our for legal system is such that the courts are extremely overburdened. So I've known probate cases which extend for more than 10 years. So if it goes on, then it really goes on. But otherwise, if there is not much of a controversy, in less than a year, the entire process can get over. So that's not.
There's one more question. I hope you aren't time poor. We can stretch this.
No, of course. No,
Okay.
please ask all the questions. If supposing if time from my side, I have no problem for the time. Whatever questions are there, I'd be more than happy to answer.
So excellent, because people are finding this very interesting. So there is a question by Manish Arora. He's saying, what's the importance of family deal and the relinquishment deed towards the implementation of the will?
देखिए, दोनों में ऐसा कोई डायरेक्ट कनेक्शन है नहीं. एज इन विल क्या है, जैसे एक्सप्लेन्ड, विल इज समथिंग दैट डिटरमाइंस कि आपकी प्रॉपर्टी कैसे जाएगी, किन लीगल हेयर्स को जाएगी आपके मरणोपरांत, आफ्टर यू आर नो लॉन्गर देयर ऑन दिस अर्थ. But a family arrangement is something that can happen while you all are alive. So that is a distinct document. That's a separate document compared to a will. So for example, three brothers might be running a company together, and now they have decided that now it's time for us to split. So then they can, by virtue of a family arrangement, say that we all three of us had got this factory, this land from our father as inheritance, and we all are running it jointly. But now this is how we propose to split it between ourselves. So then that becomes a family arrangement, and based on that family arrangement, you go and register that document in court in the sub-registrar's office, and then that property gets divided, gets segregated between the various parties. So that is the essence of a family arrangement, which is distinct from the concept of will. Will would be something very personal to the person with his own assets, as to how those devolution of those assets or the passing on of those assets happen after the death. Family arrangement is more likely in a situation where their family members are alive and they want to, earlier running a joint venture, now they want to go their separate ways. So you create, like for example, the Ambani brothers. That's the most famous and the most richest example of a family arrangement, where the Reliance Industries, say, had 50,000 crores of assets. And then there was a family arrangement by which both the brothers decided that these are the, say, 20 companies. So 10 goes to you and 10 goes to me, and these assets goes to you, these assets goes to me. And so accordingly, then there was a clear-cut division and separation, and a separate legal title then went to Mukesh Ambani and a separate legal title went to Anil Ambani. And before that family arrangement, it was a common title to both of them. So now it went separate ways. So that is the difference between a family arrangement and a will.
Amitabh has a question. Can a person bequeath a mortgage property?
No, you see, the problem is with regards to mortgage properties and tenancies, there are restrictions. I mean, because you don't have a clear title on it. So once you have mortgaged a property, you can always put a provision in your will. But that provision will not be activated unless and until you don't discharge that mortgage. Like, for example, if I have a flat and if I have mortgaged it to HDFC Bank, now in my will, I can always say that this flat shall devolve on my daughter. But she will not get the direct title unless and until she does not clear the dues of HDFC. So you can make the provision, but just merely because you've made a provision does not mean that the title will pass on. The mortgage obligation will have to be cleared first. वो पैसा पहले चुकाना पड़ेगा आपको. And with regards to tenancies, so in tenancies you can't even bequeath tenancies. You can't say that I am a tenant of so and so property, and after my death this tenancy right shall pass on to my son. That you can't even do that. For a mortgage, yes, you can do that subject to clearing the dues, but for tenancy you can't even do it that.
So we have a question from Shwetab.
Hello.
Request to clarify regarding the self-acquired property.
Hello,
and
sir. मेरा ये question है, sir.
Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah, please post your question or your query or your suggestion in the chat box. We'll take that up. And please keep yourself on mute. Thank you. So,
yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
what is Shweta's question?
Yeah, so there is a question by Shweta asking that if you could clarify regarding the self-acquired property and the ancestral inherited property in brief.
See, as far as the self-acquired properties goes, and this is always beneficial that you should mention it in your will, that say I have these 4 properties that I am seeking to make a subject matter of my will. You should specify that these 4 properties are my self-acquired properties, because will are essentially operatable against your self-acquired properties. If there are ancestral properties, then you have this Mitakshara law, Dayabhag law, the Hindu succession, and you have then the Muslim succession laws. So those general laws will determine as to how your ancestral property shall devolve. So even so, ideally, you should make a provision for in your will only of your self-acquired properties. But even if you want to make a bequeathment with regards to your ancestral properties, you can still do that. But ideally, you should do it in consonance with what the law of the land is. For example, for Hindu undivided family property, HUF property, or ancestral property, there is a certain formula in which the property has to devolve. So that's not your own choice. That is as per the law that is applicable. So in your will, if there is a property which you say that it's an ancestral property, it is not a self-acquired property, I've got it from my ancestors, then it's ideal, it's recommended that you specify that this property is my self-acquired property and this is the way I want to distribute it after my death. And this property is my ancestral property, and therefore, as per law, this is how the distribution should take place. That's the ideal thing that takes care of both your personal property, self-acquired property, that is, as well as your inherent properties. Yeah. Next question, please.
All right. So there is a question. This is a very long one. I think if Mr. Surinder Kumar is there, I'm going to unmute you. If you could please ask this directly, because it's running into very long sentences. Perhaps you would be able to sum it up a little more briefly. Mr. Surinder Kumar, you had a question.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, it is seen several times during purchase of the property. We have seen a document called as will. The person who is selling out the property is still alive, but the requirement of the will is the person who is making the will is to die. During this period of living.
तो आपके पास 2 ऑप्शन है, या तो आप इंतजार कीजिए कि वो उनके मरने तक, ठीक है, जो आपके लिए आई डोंट थिंक वुड बी मुनासिब होगा, या फिर ऐसे प्रॉपर्टी को आप मत खरीदिए. बिकॉज कोई भी विल जिसमें जिसने विल बनाया वो जीवित है, तो उस विल के आधार पे आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते। दैट विद दैट, जैसे मैंने अभी शुरुआत में जब समझाया था कि आप आज की तारीख में विल बना सकते हैं, लेकिन वो विल जो आप बनाते हैं वो जाता है ठंडे बस्ते में। इट डज नॉट गेट एक्टिवेटेड एट ऑल टिल द टाइम यू आर एक्टिव. So therefore, when you go to buy a property and the person showing the property saying that no, I am going to be the owner of this property, this is the will of my mother, and my father is gone, father has told it, give it to the mother, after the mother's death it is to me, so आप चिंता मत करो, मम्मी के मरने के बाद तो सारी प्रॉपर्टी मेरी ही है. So best of luck for him. He can, it's only after mother passes away will he become the owner. Till such a time he is not the owner. So you cannot have any dealing with such a person who is claiming his title on the basis of a will where the person making the will is alive. It's only when the person is no longer alive and the will is presented before the court and the court gives the probate certificate or the letters of administration certificate, thus the title of that beneficiary becomes clear. And only then can he come and sell it to you. उसके पहले अगर वो बेचने आ रहा है, then it's a fraudulent transaction. आपको बिल्कुल नहीं करना चाहिए वो.
अच्छा, दिल्ली में तो मोस्टली ट्रांजेक्शन इसी पर हो रही है
ना, तो बिकॉज दिल्ली में देखिए कुछ बहुत सारे प्रॉपर्टीज ऐसे भी हैं जिसके रजिस्ट्रेशन नहीं हो सकती, जैसे लाल डोरा प्रॉपर्टीज हैं, जैसे रूरल प्रॉपर्टीज हैं. सो उनमें तो दे कैन नॉट बी रजिस्ट्रेशन डन. सो देयरफॉर दिस इज बेसिस ऑफ पावर ऑफ अटॉर्नी और बेसिस ऑफ 100 रुपए के स्टैंप पेपर में साइन करके. अभी ये कि हमारी बीएससी में भी कितने अनऑथराइज कॉलोनीज में जो बिजलियां जा रही हैं, संगम विहार एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा. अब यहाँ पे कुछ किसके पास रजिस्टर्ड सेल डीड्स होती है? कुछ नहीं होता है. 100 रुपए के स्टैंप पेपर में ए ने बी को बेचा, बी ने सी को बेचा, सी ने डी के बेचा, इसी बेसिस पे वो चलता रहता है. सो ये जो मैं कह रहा हूँ आपको, मैं लीगली बात कह रहा हूँ, लेकिन प्रैक्टिकली मौके जो ग्राउंड सिचुएशन इज समथिंग डिफरेंट. मेनी टाइम्स these legal things are not followed, but then has law abiding citizens, has educated people, we should not enter into any transaction जिसके ऊपर एक legal question mark हो. That is all that I can advise.
All right, one more question, and then we can look at summing up this session. So Praveen Mudkal has a question. This is an interesting question, that if a will is made and before that the maker of the will, let's say discharges, or let's say gives half the property to a friend, and without making the change, the person passes away. So then what's the impact on the will? Because that property or half the property is already gone.
See, supposing if I have made a will today on 22nd of June, and tomorrow, that is 23rd of June, I give half the property to someone else. My friend, I actually do a sale deed. 24th June I expire, and 25th June the matter goes to court. The sale deed will gain precedence over the will, because after the will you have entered into a valid legal document. So therefore that valid legal document, the sale deed, will override the provisions of your will. Because as I said, will comes into force only when the person is dead and the will is placed before the court and the court accepts it and issues a letters of administration or the probate. It's on that date that what is said in the will attains full legal force. But a sale deed done prior to that and during the lifetime of the testator would mean that it is prior in time, it has prior legal force. Therefore, if he has made the will and because of any inadvertent error, omission, or even willingly and consciously he has chose to sell a part of that property which he ultimately wanted to make it as a subject matter of the will, he can do that. Unless and until, of course, the beneficiary under the will is able to show that this sale deed is fraudulent, this is, it's a fraud, it's under force, coercion, my father didn't intend to do this sale deed, it was done under a mistake, and so on and so forth. So all those things can be claimed. That can be argued out, and then depends whether how good your claim is or what is the nature of the sale deed. But if supposing all factors are equal, if everything is done normally and properly, then even though you have made a will in which you have decided that this is how my property should go, that still does not mean that even and you register that will also, no harm. You can still deal with that property. It does not mean that your hands are cut off. That means, oh, मैंने अभी will बना दिया इस फ्लैट को लेके, अब मैं इस फ्लैट को बेच ही नहीं सकता. नहीं, ये नहीं. You see, अगर आपने विल भी बना लिया होगा किसी फ्लैट को लेके, उसको रजिस्टर भी किया होगा, उसको अगले दिन, अगले साल, 10 साल, 5 साल की बात तो दूर की बात है, अगले दिन उसको आप बेच सकते हो. बिकॉज यू स्टिल ड्यूरिंग योर लाइफ टाइम यू आर द फुल legal owner of that asset. So you can do whatever you want with that while you're alive. Merely because you've made a will is not a restriction on your total powers to deal with the property in the manner you deem fit.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. We have a few more questions. If time permits, can I lob them to you?
Yeah, sure, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay, so there's another question by Manish Arora. If the will is unregistered and then there is a death of the executor, uh, what happens? Like, does the unregistered will has any weightage?
हाँ, तो आई मीन आप एग्जीक्यूटर के बदले मेरे ख्याल से आप कहना चाह रहे हैं टेस्टेटर। विल अनरजिस्टर्ड है और जिसने विल बनाया वो टेस्टेटर है, वो एग्जीक्यूटर नहीं है। So if he dies before he gets his will registered, does it have any legal weight? I'll answer both the scenarios. Will is made before the will is registered, the testator dies. Will is made and the will contains an executor's name, but that executor dies before the will is registered. In either of the situation, the will is valid. Register, as I said at the start, that will is optionally registrable. It is not compulsorily registrable, unlike a sale deed, for that example. So once there is a will, it's up to you whether you want to register it or not register it. Even if you don't register it, it is perfectly legally valid. But it is always advisable to register it so that it gives a greater force of authenticity to that will. So that tomorrow after your death, if there is any controversy, any litigation, any case, then that, or even someone has to, even the executor or beneficiary has to approach the court. The fact that it is registered gives a great deal of confidence in the court and quickens your process, and the court fatafat gives you a letters of administration or a probate in your favor, if at all it is registered. If not, then the court views such documents with great deal of suspicion.
So Pramod Sharma has a question that if a registered will was made and however subsequently there was an unregistered will also which cropped up, so what's the legal sanctity of the unregistered one?
See, then it's a direct this thing. It's a direct cause of conflict. Normally, the courts have weighed in the favor of a registered will, but even if, because once a will is registered, then it has a greater force, greater authenticity compared to an unregistered will, even if the unregistered will is of a later date. So, because I'm assuming that when a situation like this arises, if there is no controversy, if all the beneficiaries, if all the legal heirs support the subsequent unregistered will, then there is no problem that subsequent unregistered will gain prominence or precedence over the earlier registered will. But if there is any controversy, any dispute, any litigation, then the chances are of an earlier registered will getting precedence over a subsequent unregistered will. So there are chances, although again there is no hard and fast rule.
Pradeep Soni has a question. Any specific provision for a soldier who's in battlefield?
Yes. So there is what is known as a privileged will. A soldier on the battlefield can execute what is known as a privileged will. So that in such situation, if you are able to demonstrate that he was in the battlefield and he died, so an oral statement made by the soldier to someone else, or even in a plain writing also, all those things do take the formal nature of a will. So those are privileged wills, and I don't think any one of us is ever going to face a situation where we need to make a will on a battlefield. So I will not, those are a slightly technical nature, so I won't trouble the rest. But it's a good question as a sort of a curiosity. Yes, a soldier in a battlefield can make a will on the spot. It can be verbal, it can be oral, it can be on a plain piece of paper, it can be narrated to someone else, and that someone else can say that this is what was done. But then the process for proving that will, of course, is a separate process altogether. Where you file letters of administration, and if there is a contest, and so on and so forth. But a soldier is entitled to make a will on a battlefield, and those wills are called privileged wills.
Yes. There's a question by Mr. Sundaran Pandian. It says that father made a will where I think the son is the heir, and then the son nominates the father. I mean, it's vice versa. The father is in the will of the son, and then father passes away. So what happens to the property? I mean, does it go back to the son?
Yes. For example, if this is the example, or in any other example where, for example, just to make it more simpler, for example, the father has made a will saying that it shall devolve only to one son of mine and to no one else. And the son predeceases the father, and the father is not able to make any change in the will, and father also dies. So the court comes to know that whatever will the father has made, that cannot be enforced because the beneficiary under that will to whom this property was to go is no longer in existence, has predeceased the testator. Then in that case, the uh, family law comes into the picture. The then it would mean as if the person has died intestate. That means the person has died without a will. And what is the bequeathment or what is the devolution of property to a person who has died without a will, or a person who's called dying intestate? That formula then will be applied. So even though you've made a will and it may even be registered, but if supposing the beneficiary under that will predeceases you, dies before you, then it will mean as if that will does not exist at all. Or that means you have died without making a will. You have died intestate. And then as per the family law, class 1 heirs, then class 2 heirs, then class 3 heirs, they would accordingly get the share in the property.
There's one question by Pramod Sharma. If a this is he's citing that this is a real case in hand. It is a post-COVID case, so perhaps must have happened in the last 1 year or so. If a beneficiary dies before the testator, in case of a registered will, and then the testator dies before amending the will the legal heirs of the died beneficiary have any right, organically speaking, naturally speaking?
No, so that's exactly just this. I just reiterate the question answer that I just gave. If there is any problem with the will in terms of its bequeathment, for example, by virtue of death or any other such thing, then it will mean as if there is no will in the eyes of law. And then the bequeathment will take place as per your own family laws, whether it goes to class 1 heirs in equal proportion. If there are no class 1 heirs, then class 2 heirs and class 3 heirs. So if this example or the earlier example or any other example for that matter, which is there in which makes the will unworkable, then if the will is unworkable, then the law would assume that the person has died intestate, that is, has died without the will. And therefore the normal devolution process starts, the normal bequeathment, to the widow, to the sons and the daughters, so on and so forth, as per your personal law, the Hindu personal law, the Muslim personal law, it would proceed in that direction.
All right, many thanks indeed, Mr. Fernandes. I believe we've probably addressed all the queries so far. I would like to believe that all the queries which have been logged have been addressed. Thanks once again to all the attendees as well. Over to you, Renu, if you're there.
Thanks, Mr. Sunil Fernandes. It was indeed a totally active and a proactive response from you. Thanks for all your time. Thanks for all your information sharing, dissemination, despite your blocked bandwidth at all times. Thanks to Raj once again for allowing you to be on our board once again, though of course it's only the second time. We look forward to more such sessions with you, Mr. Fernandes.
Thank you.
We had an overwhelming participation of 80 plus. We could have had more, I guess, but then yes, there's always a next time. We'll park all of them who are in queue for your next session, Mr. Fernandes. Over to you, Raj.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Fernandes, for discussing each and every aspect of will and probate in detail and answering the queries of all the participants. I request all the participants, in case any of them still have queries, they can just mail it to me or Pramod Gupta or Piyush. We can forward it to Mr. Fernandes and he will be happy to answer all that. And we will request you to give the feedback to the Renu also about this session, so we can organize sessions of this type which are of interest to everybody for in their day-to-day life. So thanks, Mr. Fernandes, and we look forward to more such sessions in future. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, and wish you all the best. Stay safe.
Thank you. My best wishes to everybody in the BSS family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandes. I think it's been a great session, very interactive. A lot of participants have given an excellent feedback, and they've surely benefited out of this. So we genuinely appreciate this gesture of which is pro bono from your end, and I think this is going to probably stay in people's mind for a very long time. A very important subject, a very pertinent subject.
Thank you.
Okay,
That's
great.
good.
And Mr. Fernandez, just out of this is something personal,
Sure.
since now we've already closed the session.
Yes.
Participants may leave. You mentioned that you were in Bombay earlier before you moved to Delhi. Is that correct? In your
Yes.
introduction, I think somebody shared that,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes.
just out of I happened to work in Bombay and I actually interacted with a gentleman by a same name. Uh, are you by any chance is your nickname Sunny also by any chance?
No, no. I mean, I have several nicknames, but most of them are unparliamentary. I can't
Okay.
disclose it on public
All
platform.
right. Okay. Because we had a customer by Mr. Sunny Fernandez in Bombay distribution, and we used
Okay.
to often get a lot of queries from that gentleman and young guy, very nice,
No,
simple.
Ritik, I shifted to Delhi when I immediately after my graduation. So I was not even 21 when I shifted to Delhi. So it's
Okay.
been a very long time now. I've lived, in fact,
Yeah,
more
yeah.
years in Delhi
Mr. Yeah.
in
So
Bombay.
you're a young
Mr.
guy, I think.
Prabhakar now is more of a Delite than a Mumbai.
Bilkul, bilkul, sir.
That's right. That's right. Excellent.
We have
Great.
given him Delhi citizenship.
Right?
Oh, beautiful. I think he still probably would like to retain his dual citizenship. I know people from Bombay and from Delhi. Both have very strong, affiliations to their native places as well.
Yeah.
So I think the excellent.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's been great. Fantastic,
yeah.
Mr. Arora. Great. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
going to be
Okay.
truly a memorable one. We have recorded this session.
Thank you.
So we
Thank
will
you.
pass on this to
Thank
the legal
Sure,
team
sure.
tomorrow.
Please. Yeah, please do. Please.
Yeah.
And then, they would be able to share that with you as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ritik.
Take care,
Thank you.
stay safe, have a good one.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
So, did you get to close the session?